Count Corla, I'd like to thank Sinn Féin for bringing the motion, although I do have some sympathy for Fianna Fáil as they've been left with a disastrous housing strategy by the previous Fine Gael government. We now have a planning policy primarily based around transport and climate change for rural towns where no public transport infrastructure exists. A policy that has little regard for the social consequences that it will bring upon the future generations of low-income families. A policy that has not been reconsidered in light of the massive changes in society as a result of COVID. A policy that will change supply of housing and drive up house prices. A policy that will destroy towns in rural Ireland. A policy that in the majority does not allow the building of family homes with front and back gardens. A policy about which the World Bank said the merits of which are by no means clear, nor is it self-evident that these are desired by the majority of urban residents. A policy that has failed everywhere and that the British abandoned in 2010. Count Corla, on the 1st of April I addressed the issue of a missive written from the Planning Regulator's Office to Wexford County Council, where clearly the regulator was acting ultra vires. Subsequent to that contribution, the regulator issued a deluge of diatribe to the press, saying I was misleading and inaccurate, all of which was complete rubbish. I had the opportunity to challenge the regulator yesterday when he made a presentation to the Regional Independent Group. The man is incapable of answering a question. What is now clear is that the regulator who is misleading councillors and politicians the length and breadth of this country. He is completely ignoring the Minister's circular on densities issued on the 21st of April.
I'm loath to interrupt you because I suppose it could be argued that you're making a political charge, but you're effectively making a serious charge
Count Corla, if it's any use
House.
to you, I have an opinion of senior counsel who says the same thing.
Well, no, that still doesn't cut it. It's not appropriate for us here to launch effectively personal attacks on named or identifiable individuals. I fully accept and sympathise.
It's not a personal attack, Count Corla.
I fully accept and sympathise with the point that you're making, but I think you need to be careful.
Count Corla, I have been very careful and I've spent a lot of time. He is actually misleading people and refused to acknowledge that yesterday when the evidence was presented. He has presented a letter to Wexford County Council contrary to what the Minister has sent to Wexford County Council and refuses to acknowledge it. So I'll continue, Count Corla. Now, bear in mind that we've had an interruption. Subsequent to my speech on the Dáil floor of April 1st, I procured the opinion of former Attorney-General and Senior Counsellor Senator Michael McDowell. His opinion concluded that the regulator was acting and is acting ultra vires. I put it to the regulator, of which I received no response. I'm not alone in my view. On the regulator's thoughts, Senior Counsel for Cork County Council review proceedings in judicial review proceedings described the regulator's recommendation to the Minister as unlawful, flawed, irrational and of no legal effect and without jurisdiction. On the same subject, Count Corla, of which you'll be glad to hear I'm moving on. Last night on Clare Byrne, we heard Minister Burke talk about high-density developments and in the same breath talk about family homes, 3- and 4-bed semis, probably with gardens. Clearly the Minister is asleep and he has not read his own guidelines. The unimplementable SPPR4, which is what Mr Justice Collins referred to it as, it's a specific planning policy requirement. And I want the ministers to listen carefully. To avoid monotype building typologies, such as 2-storey or own-door houses only. This is the policy of the compact high density that is to apply to every town over 5,000 people. It was as plain as a Pike staff watching the Minister last night that he was not aware that this SBPR4 exists. It makes no provision for 3 or 4 bedroomed homes. 3 or 4 bedroom semis of the state he envisages are in the ranges of 20 to 30 dwellings per hectare. His policy provides for 35 to 50 and not less than 30 according to the regulator. So I don't envisage any 3 or 4 bed semis, Ceann Comhairle. The Minister and the regulator refuse to allow local authorities to adopt planning policies to provide for family home. When is the government going to wake up? This regulator will have the policy enshrined in every county development plan before they realise it. The SPPR4 must be abandoned. It's clear that the regulator is the fox in the fowl house, what is now Fianna Fáil's housing policy. The consequence of his interpretation of the Minister's guidelines will choke housing supply. It will put an end effectively to family homes, it will put up house prices and it will create the ghettos of tomorrow. It is the very policy that will create the tribunals of tomorrow. Now, Ceann Comhairle, the regulator, has refused to debate with me on national radio. And of course, the cute fox that he is, when he's challenged, he recoils back to the little office in Grange Gorman, or probably a big office, bigger than some of the houses he's proposing. The question is, Ceann Comhairle, who's regulating the regulator? It would appear from his presentation to the Oireachtas Committee on Housing, he's the Steve Silverman of planning. He has come to save us from the darkest days of the planning tribunals. So I hope the Taoiseach will not be faced with the surprise that faced him in this House last week, when he realised the effect of the policies of this government in real terms when county councils are taking long-term leases from cuckoo funds. Ceann Comhairle, government needs to have the epiphany in relation to the planning regulator and deal with the red fox in the fowl house. Because if they don't, there will be little or no family homes, towns will be ghettoised, and there won't be a GAA team left in rural Ireland. I may apologise to my colleague.
Well, you were in full flight.